So, just to give you an overview, my name is Daniel Baxter and I am a lecturer in tourism and events at Glasgow Caledonian University. And part of what I teach is around the concept of experience management, and a lot of my teaching sort of engages this concept of industry collaboration. So what we're going to look at today is university and industry collaboration, but specifically addressing the skills gap in the tourism, hospitality, and event sectors that's really been caused by COVID. So, just to give you a bit of pre-COVID-19 conceptualization of sort of the tourism, hospitality, and events management education, and this is a global perspective, but you'll see alignment sort of that sits within the UK perspective also. So tourism, events, and hospitality, it's still a global phenomenon, and that's something we need to be aware of. Before COVID, it was a global phenomenon. As we build back stronger, it is going to be a global phenomenon. And that's why we've seen higher education sector playing such an important role in supplying the emerging industry with high quality graduates. And as academics, what our students, and some of our students are here, should be really thinking about is, am I ready to impact the sector I'm ready to go into, and has my education really helped me become a high quality graduate through the education that has supplied me? And all of us on this call, and many of us teaching in tourism, hospitality, and events, we know that we strive to do that. And collaboration and industry engagement is so important in the delivery of that. But there's still a perceived disparity between what is actually being taught at university level to our students. And that's why we need to engage our students and ask them, is what you're being taught what you need to know? So when we're going through our review process, that's something that we do. So pre-COVID, we've seen that the requirements of industry was that they wanted more experience. And it goes back to what Ida was talking about on Monday with that experiential learning concept. Are we really engaging experiential learning in what we do? So embedding employability and experiential education are such important factors for our students. While research underpins what we do, we still need to be putting our students at the focal point of everything that we do as well, because in essence, they're going to be the ones that are leading the sector once they graduate. And we want to ensure that we are inspiring them into the sector. So the concept of employability is therefore a key concern for many of us that are delivering these programs. It's now an expectation. And before COVID, it was an expectation that employability and engagement were embedded within these programs. And there is a government-led focus on employability across all business schools and across all universities. But for some subject areas, it's quite difficult to define how this is engaged in our programs. And we are very fortunate that we can showcase that quite well. And again, it goes back to what Ida and Kevin were talking about, that there is some really good evidence of this across the board, which we need to build on. So COVID-19 hits, and the tourism, and what's that been like to the tourism, events, and hospitality sector? Well, it's caused such significant disruption in the global world economy in general. We've seen that, we know that. Tourism, events, and hospitality, the sectors have been some of the worst hit industries across both developed and developing nations. And that sometimes elements that is not viewed. We forget that there's countries across Southeast Asia, Africa, Middle East, and elements of Eastern Europe, where tourism, hospitality, events are so important to their GDP that we forget that these countries are suffering and still suffering because they are still looking to build back post-COVID. So we hopefully are aware that these sectors are crucial to the international economy, and we see that they contribute around 29% of world service exports, and service as that non-tangible product, but it has around 300 million direct jobs globally. So it's a huge sector that's been really, really, and I use the word decimated by COVID-19, because what it's also done is it's affected the attractiveness of working across these sectors. So what you also see is that we are now navigating this new norm. And the question is, as we come out of COVID, for students, one of the questions that are graduating is, what is the world of work going to look like once we graduate? How are we going to make an impact in the sector. So as we settle into this, and I put in inverted commas, new normal, what we're starting to really see is tourism levels steadily rise to meet post-pandemic levels, which is great because we're seeing that people want to travel. There's the demand to travel. There's a demand to go to events. There's a demand to stay in hotels. But the biggest crisis, and a new crisis that we are facing in that sector, is addressing the skills gap. We have seen that the IMF indicate that 100 million jobs have been affected of COVID, with many employees leaving the sector for more stable jobs with what they consider more stable within retail, finance, etc. So this has created a huge knowledge and skills gap. But with challenges and with crisis, I am very much of the concept that with every challenge becomes an opportunity. So for our students and our coming through our programs, there's a huge opportunity for jobs on leaving university. Again, it goes back to, are we ensuring that we are creating the graduates who can fill these roles? But one question that falls to a lot of people is, in the UK, we have had other catalysts which have really impacted our tourism, hospitality and event sectors, probably more than other countries in the world, because while we've had the pandemic, we've also had the impact of Brexit, where we've seen a lot of our key skilled workers leave, go back to Central Europe, go across to the US and taken up roles within hospitality, events and tourism elsewhere. So we have this gap, we have this skills gap, this knowledge gap. But one of the questions that always comes up with students, when we're talking about critical issues, with employers, with people usually outside the realm of tourism and events and hospitality is this really an issue? So something that I like to do is to demonstrate that this is an issue. The skills gap is a huge issue, and we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg at the moment. Examples here are of news cycles that have come out recently about Manchester Airport CEO stepping down amid airport chaos. So Manchester Airport, one of the biggest airports in the Midlands of the UK, when it went back to full operation, couldn't service the customers. And therefore, it was impacting the airlines, it was impacting departure times, it was impacting people going on holiday. And that's because they didn't have enough workers, skilled workers who understand the sector to deliver the operational and commercial elements of it. We're seeing at the moment now in the UK with our Sky News apps, which we see on our phone every morning, there is an alert every day of British Airways cancellations, because at the moment British Airways are cancelling up to 50 flights a day because of COVID-19, because they do not have the staff. They're encouraging incentives to their colleagues who are already working, like the Marriott are doing for sign-on bonus. They're having to outsource now to countries such as Finland for Finnair to come in and operationalize their flights that they can't do on short haul, which is leakage. And that's a major impact of bouncing back from COVID, because if we're, as a country, one of our biggest flying airlines is outsourcing flights and outsourcing operations, that money is not being paid to people within the British Airways team, which is then not being spent in the UK. So what we're creating is leakage of economic impact of the tourism sector to other places around the world. We're seeing that in Business Insider, hotel room prices are skyrocketing amid worker shortages and declining service. So what they're seeing in some of the hotels is that service is declining because they don't have the staff that have been trained. They don't have the staff that have worked in the sector. So again, that knowledge and skills gap. And then therefore, they're having to put room prices up in order to deal with the surging demand, but they're not being able to deliver on their key principles, which people expect when they do travel and experience hospitality. We're seeing Thailand internationally encourage tourists to temper their expectations of traveling to Thailand, because usually they would accept 10 million passengers, but now they're not able to cope with that due to hotels still looking to reopen amid the demand in operational flights that are going into the country. And then finally, in the event sector, we're seeing events being scaled back because amid labour shortages. So we can see that this is a huge issue. We can see that this is causing major problems within the sector. But again, as I say, it's opportunities for our students studying these programs, opportunities for universities, because what we need to do is assume that the new norms are going to be with us for a while. And we need to be aware that tourism, hospitality, and events are core to building back economies. We need to acknowledge not just HEIs as universities and colleges, but industry need to acknowledge that there's a skills gap. Governments need to acknowledge that there's a skills gap. We have an important role to bridge the gap between HEIs, governments, and industry, but all for our students. That's why we need to do this, is to future-proof and invest in these industries, which are so important to our economies, to the global economy, but also to countries, cities, and regions around the world. So we need to take a more co-creative approach to inspire students to want to work within the sector. And like many of our students, they are going through that question of what's next, what's the opportunities? And it's up to us as an industry to showcase, and we've been very lucky here at GCU to showcase these opportunities. And that's where it goes back to what Ida, Kevin have been alluding to throughout this series, is that employability and access to experiential learning are imperative because it equips our students with the skills to be future leaders. But we still need to align with that employability agenda. We're seeing that there's still a need to ensure that academic research is showing that the employability of graduates is founded in the experience they have during their time at university. And one of the problems that we might be coming up against in some places is getting that time commitment from industry, from government to support this learning, to support these opportunities. But that's where we need to become creative. We need to become creative in helping to plug this gap, and helping to bounce back after COVID, and helping to make the hospitality, tourism, and event sectors flourish. So we are seeing it being driven. There's external pressures, there's economic pressures on us to ensure that we have an underskilled workforce, that we create it into a skilled workforce, and we create it into a skilled workforce that are going to be passionate about working in these sectors. So within the changing higher education environment, it's all about making the significant experience for our students, changing the behaviours of what we do, moving away from those traditional taught learning approaches into being more innovative and engaging in what we can deliver. And tourism, events, and hospitality is one of those programme and subject areas that is able to do that. We are seeing more demand for studying in these areas, both internationally and locally. So we need to make our commitment to this sector and to those that are wanting to work in it a core part of what we're constantly doing within academic institutions. So two key factors that we need to consider as well is that students are paying for university. So we need to ensure that we demonstrate value for money, or we demonstrate value. And that's so important because value is perceived in the experience that people have. We come from tourism, events, and hospitality. We need to make sure that our hotels, our transport, our festivals, our events all have a level of perceived value based on the experience that is gained from attending them. And that should be no different in what we do in the delivery of our content, because we want to make sure that our students have that amazing experience when they're with us. They enjoy the learning that they do. They can apply it in industry, and then they become alumni that we go back to support this cyclical process. And this points towards this concept of theory, because it's always important, as we know as academics, to draw in theory somewhere. And we're always tasked with it. It's always important. And this is where the triple helix comes in from Komatsu in 2016. And just on this, what they talk about is that we need to see more cross collaboration, co-creative activity between government, industry, and university in order to enhance graduate experience, to encourage new learning paradigms, to create new products and innovation, to identify new funding opportunities, to engage and innovate the sectors, and create new infrastructure. And at the moment, because of COVID, this is where we are at. We have taken a couple of steps back to being at this void of development. And it's creating that change of perception of what it's like to work in tourism, events, and hospitality. Because what we need to be actively doing is through what we do is creating 21st century graduates who are active and global citizens, that are able to make change, that have confidence. And at the moment, that confidence might be a bit depleted in some ways because of where are the opportunities coming from, coming out of COVID. But there are loads of opportunities, and that's where we can work with industry to create these. We want to create responsible leaders. We want to ensure that our students are able to apply the practical skills underpinned with theory in controlled, safe environments where they can make mistakes, they can ask questions in order to reflect and develop their skills and create an entrepreneurial mindset that they can take into industry and help to drive change, drive sustainable development, drive growth, be the next ambassadors for the sector. And that's so important to what we should be delivering as academics and as higher education providers. And this is where this concept of university and industry collaboration becomes important. Now, many of us are doing this, some of us more than others, but are we actively presenting it and showcasing it to our students, the value? Are we actively showcasing the value to industry and to our universities and supporting our time to do this? Because this is going to be so important in helping to talent match, to ensure we have responsible leaders, and to ensure students are engaged during their time at university. So there's so much pressure to create social accountability and overall economic relevance of what we are delivering. So we need to make sure that as we move forward and the industry changes and the new norms become apparent, that we're collaborating with our industry partners, our industry organizations, public, private, and third sector, to ensure that this is there. We have seen a shift towards a knowledge-based economy, and that's what students want on our programs. They want to be able to know how they can apply the skills they're learning into the real world. And that's a motivating factor for industry. That's how we should be engaging industry into what we do and what we deliver and helping them bounce back post-pandemic. So this concept has been studied. It has been identified as a unique opportunity to engage and develop organizations and industry. Some HEIs, as I've said, are better at it. Some have gauged it more. Some universities and governments will support it more. But this is the prime opportunity for us as students, academics, industry to really hone in on why this is going to be important. Because of the radical changes caused by COVID, because of the transferability of key skills in the workplace, we want to be able to demonstrate this and demonstrate again the importance, the value, and the opportunities within the tourism, hospitality, and event sector as we grow out of COVID. What we also need to be aware of in UICs is that industry engagement and live collaborative projects is how we move forward. It's not just about creating work placement experiences, industry internships, because not all of our students can take advantage of these because some are working part-time jobs, some are studying full-time. So it's how do we integrate these collaborations into our curriculum, what we do, in order to enhance the experience, but also to develop the skills that they can take into the sector and add value to our organizations. And you go back to what Kevin said, is talking about how organizations are looking to invest in their staff. And this is the first step of their investment, is investing in working with universities to identify the staff, to identify their next future leaders. And we need to be open to creating that. We still have to break down the barriers. And I think COVID has been this barrier, has been the catalyst to break down the barrier, where industry sometimes do think they know better than us. We sometimes think we know better than industry. Government think they sometimes know better than everyone. But it's about bringing it together, bridging the gap, and saying that everyone has a seat at the table in order to build back the sector. So it's not about a one-way relationship. It's about a cyclical relationship that's a continuum of working together. It's about identifying successful partnerships that you know will work. And sometimes that's at the local level, sometimes at the global level. But what you need to be aware of is that you have effective vision in what you're trying to achieve with these. So that you, if you're working with industry or government, you're able to set key parameters. It's about mutual trust and respect among group members, and students start to then develop their own understanding of professionalism, their digital CV. The university starts to build strategic partnerships with organizations, and what we start to see is a co-creative approach to plugging this knowledge and skills gap. So what we need to be ensuring is that we establish the right industry partner, that we will maybe be approached by lots of organizations, but it's got to be right for the students, right for the sector, and right for the ideals that fit with your own organization as a university. We need to nurture that relationship, and that takes time. And students are part of that relationship building with the industry partner, because effectively they're our ambassadors. They're going on to showcase the best learning that they've had in these new roles, but they can only do that if they've had the opportunity to experience this. There's an importance of understanding what the roles and responsibilities are, because with developing university and industry collaborations, we don't want any partners to, we want it to be viable for all partners. We want them to get success out of it all. And that's why the strategy, the approach needs to be cyclical, and it needs to be in a continuum where it's supported. So some of the questions I get when I approach organizations like this, because I do think that covering what these are and the importance of them and how they will help bounce back the COVID sector, the events and tourism industry after COVID, is important. But for some of our colleagues watching this, listening to this, they might be thinking about even those graduates that are going into the sector and are thinking that they might want to do this to give back to their institutions, is why invest? And this is where the practical element comes in of why should I invest in a university and industry collaboration? And one of the key points is its role in enhancing the student experience. And what we have found in the elements of what we deliver is that it's helped bring the learning to life. It's helped ensure that students understand how they're going to make an impact in the industry. It's helped them to realize why they do assessments. And what's also been highlighted is the value that it has in creating a commerciality and enhancing their own CV and networking. It's helping to develop those graduate attributes. So the skills that they've learned, they start to realize that they will help once they enter the sector. And that's important for the industry, because then they know they are getting graduates equipped with the knowledge and the passion that they can then invest time in helping to shape and develop the other skills. It allows them that entrepreneurial mindset to come up with their own ideas, and they get to understand what it's like to pitch in front of live clients, to be in front of boardrooms, to meet CEOs, but also to meet those alumni that have been in their shoes to showcase what the opportunities are. And we need that more than ever in helping now as we move beyond COVID. It creates future industry leaders. There's evidence of this reflected in how it enhances their exposure to the real world. So students aren't just basing things on anecdotes, they're basing it through experience and that experiential learning. It challenges our students to think critically, so that when they're going into industry, they're actively looking at how opportunities, how operations are run, how commercial concepts are developed, and they're questioning that, looking at new and alternative ways to solve real world problems. And that's what makes it valuable to the industry, because they have these future leaders that have that ability to think critically and inspire others around them, but also make a difference. And that then inspires organizations to invest and continue to work. It also allows talent matching. So it gives students exposure to local, national, international organizations, and more importantly, to the varying roles across our sector. It allows industry partners to really understand to get the opportunity to promote their own organization. And that's so important now because organizations want our talented graduates, our talented students. They want to give our students the opportunity, but they don't always have that chance for exposure. So it gives that chance for exposure from the typical maybe careers weeks. It creates a more opportunity to delve down into who that organization are. During the project, students, there is mutual networking opportunities across different departments, different functionalities, and the students get access to job opportunities and sometimes create their own jobs within organizations. And what the industry partners get to do is to see firsthand who these future graduates are and offer roles. So just quickly, what I wanted to demonstrate was how we do this at Glasgow Caledonian University and how we do that in our programme. And the way we embed it is aligned to our own mission and vision as an organisation. So when we're thinking about partners to work with, we want to ensure that our students are active in global citizenships. So we look at organisations who are both international and local. We want the collaboration projects to problem solve and create opportunities for growth and income for businesses so that students can be an effective part of that process. We want them to be responsible leaders. So we want them to take control and ownership of the project, have that communication with the client, build their own leadership and professional skills, which is what organizations are looking out for from graduates coming through. And confidence, the delivery that the project instills in creating confidence is so important because it allows students to have an opportunity to talk to industry partners about when they go for interviews or when they're looking for job opportunities. So that's how we build it. And these are just a couple of examples of the organizations that we have worked with personally, a couple of ones that I've worked with our students. And at level 2, we've had students work with Superdrug, who are a large, in the States we call it a drugstore. They're one of the largest UK beauty stores in the UK. And students have had the opportunity to design experiences and conceptualize and design them, working with the marketing director. So somebody in such a established position. We've then had the opportunity for our level 4 students to work with companies like Radisson Red Hotels, supporting the opening, looking at how to locally engage community into the hotel rather than just international travelers, which again are tasks that they are going to have to actively do when they work in the hospitality and events and tourism sector. We've worked with Edinburgh Airport, looking at guest experience, thinking about transport, thinking about how to engage end-to-end experience. We've worked with intercontinental hotel groups, looking at stakeholder collaboration. Recently, we've worked with Virgin Hotels, looking at marketing tourism experiences, and we're seeing a number of graduates being employed in their hotels at the moment because they're currently opening one in Glasgow and Edinburgh. And because of our working relationship with them, we've been able to pass opportunities over to colleagues in campuses in New York. So again, global reach, and our students are coming from Glasgow, some of them to work in hotels overseas and having that opportunity. We've worked with social innovation organisations and charities to showcase that other side of organisations that are raising monies to fund their organisation rather than for commercial gain. And then at programme level, we've also worked with the city of Lahti in Finland, creating opportunities for students to look at how to grow tourism in international markets. But this has only been possible through the negotiation, the relationship management with our industry partners through these university and industry collaborations. And what we are seeing now is more and more of these organizations come back to us now saying, we need your help. We need your help in recruiting. We need your help to identify the next talent for the future. And we are now saying, well, how do we do this in a manner which is going to inspire students to work with you? And we've seen that recently with our Virgin and Intercontinental Hotel relationships. So some lessons learned that we need to ensure that when we move forward with these as we grow out of the pandemic is that We need to be actively seeking opportunities for our students, but also to think it's an important role for us to help the sector bounce back. We need to be working with industry and government. And with our Virgin Hotel opportunity, that was me on LinkedIn emailing their CEO and saying, I hear you're opening a hotel. Can we work together? And that relationship has been nurtured into something fabulous where we're seeing student and industry opportunities. The expectation of setting all of these involved. We need to make sure that expectation setting is clear, that students aren't going to be taken advantage of. The organisation isn't going to have impacted themselves, that the university is going to be able to ensure collaboration contexts are set. And that's really important. It needs to be meaningful and mutual benefits. And that's what's going to grow the sector back, because we need organizations coming in and working with us and showing why this sector is still attractive to work in, because it is. Those of us teaching in it love it. We know the opportunities are coming back, but is this being communicated to our students and our organizations supporting us in this? Because we know what it's like. We invite lecturers in, we invite industry in, because the students always don't believe what we say. And then when the industry tell the students what we are saying, we're always happy because they're reiterating what we know. Students need to understand that there are opportunities aligned. So we need to be showcasing to the students why being engaged in these projects within our modules are so important. What are the opportunities for them? What are the features and benefits? And how can they showcase their skills and talents? And as I've said constantly, we need to be leading in this. So university and industry collaborations will be part of how we can address the skills gap, how we can grow the sector as it moves into these new norms. So going forward, we need to be looking at how we create these opportunities within our programs. It's essential that we invest more time developing new ICs and saying to senior management, give us time to nurture this, because our students want it, need it, and industry will engage with it and take value from it. It helps to increase our student satisfaction for the sector they want to go into. It helps them to realize that there are boundless opportunities because they're getting exposed to organizations, and the skills they learn from the particular organization they work with, they can apply it to other organizations as well. It develops employability skills for the students who will go on to work and grow within these organizations and become ambassadors for these types of opportunities. And again, it enhances our reputation. So, bit of a whirlwind tour, but what I was trying to do today was to explain that we are navigating out of this post-pandemic COVID that's impacted our sector. We need to start working more closely together as industry, universities, and governments. We are seeing governments invest in promoting this sector. We are seeing organizations do it. We are seeing universities do it. And this is the way to bring it together so that it becomes a joined up approach and we see the sector thrive as it's starting to do. So what I'm just going to do quickly is also show you just quickly the work that some of our students have done with these organizations, which they can then use as their digital CV and they can use when they go to employers. And what's really interesting for the employers is that all the ideas that the students come up with can be used within the organization. And we've seen that in Glasgow. Over the case of doing this, we've had 37 students employed by organizations that we've worked with, which is a testament to how successful these really are. So with Virgin Hotels, which was their most recent, we've seen students deliver this kind of content to them, where the organization have commented on the professionalism, the value, and also the ideas that have come out with it. So students were looking to develop personas for the types of clients that will come to the hotel and what they can do while they stay in the area. So seeing the trends of the industry to create experiences based in Glasgow. And one of the students that has done this presentation, Rohan, has just been employed by Virgin Hotels this week. We've also seen students work with IHG in developing shared business profit concepts, which look at how you can work together to enhance a destination, but you need the community and the stakeholders within the destination to come together. We're seeing them work in developing pre-event shop openings for organizations where they can take it and utilize it, because that, for some of these organizations, these students are the target market. And then these students who are passionate about what they deliver are able to take it into the context of interviews and make an impact. So that's just some of the work that our students have done that have added value to organizations, that have embedded the concepts that they've come up with into their own organization for commercial value. So I will stop there, and don't know if there'll be any questions or any comments, but just a thank you for those of you that are able to join. And I know these will be recorded. And
yes, well, we're recording and putting them up, and at the end I'll send all of our presenters the link. I know some of our professors here at CLC were like, oh, we really want these for our students to see. We're still at the tail end of our semester, so I'm sure some of these might end up being extra credit, but not everyone can join at this time. I will say that I went to a school for graduate school that was very much hands-on experience, and I, as a student, wish that I would have had that experience sooner. So now that I work at a community college and I work in an office that's right next door to internships, that's very important. We have industry coming in all the time that says, hey, I'm looking for students, I'm looking for interns in this, and connecting our students to that, because I think that's what you're saying is very valuable. One of the things I do wanted to ask is, like, I don't know how in the last year things have changed as far as like getting students trained before their internships virtually. Is that something that's you see happening more and more? Is that there's the same kind of value, or what are you looking for or seeing so far?
Our students for the latest one we did at master's level with the Virgin company, Virgin Hotels, it was all done digitally and online.
Oh, okay.
It's just about readdressing the skill set and ensuring that students understand that if you're still doing these concepts of projects and so on, whether you're sitting in front of somebody sitting at a desk, the principles still align. And this is one of the new norms that's going to come out of this, is that working from home is going to be a part of what we do. So we still need to be able to engage in that proactivity, that learning experience. And yeah, we are design principles. We're going back to mostly online teaching next, on campus teaching, sorry. Most of it's coming back on campus. We will see students embed those skills into the delivery of their projects, where they'll use online techniques, use the in-person. But it was difficult initially to try and make sure that the impact and experience could still be delivered, and it poses challenges, but it does go down to the meaningfulness of the project, whether students know the value in it and they can apply the value, and that's something that's really, really important. And that's why I sort of took a different approach for this sort of series of talks. Was a lot of the information was just so impressive from the colleagues, and they're talking about it from that research based. What do destinations need to do? What's it going to look like for growth out of pandemic for tourism, hospitality? I wanted to look at it. Well, what can we do to make sure the next generation are able to deliver post pandemic? And I think that's where this sort of mindset comes from, because in higher education, we need to make sure we are part of that. We're not just helping the destinations grow. We need to make sure that we have a part playing in ensuring those successful leaders that will encourage growth in the sector.
Yeah, as someone from everyone who spoke, I've been able to catch every presentation, and I think on Monday we saw how the tourist industry is changing in Florence, and like how the demographics are also changing and who's traveling. Yeah. Yesterday we heard about what are the experience people are looking for in general. And so I think it's interesting to see just the different perspectives. That you had something similar about, how do you advertise Scotland and the certain region or a certain city, like how do you promote it? How do you bring it out there? And so it's like, we're looking at like, that was the kind of the Florence. And now it's like, yesterday was like, he brought up the example of like Disneyland. And I just recently went, so I was like, yes, I see it. Like people are looking for certain experiences, but also it's like how is that going to change now that we're coming out? We've been cooped up. Like we want to experience things.
Everyone wants to go back out, and it's great. We can market that, get on a plane, get into hotels. If we don't have the staff to deliver these experiences, the impact to the destination is detrimental, because then people don't want to go back. They lose brand loyalty to hotel chains, they lose brand loyalty to airlines, they lose brand loyalty to go into that safe space, that entertainment venue, that event. So if we don't have those committed, those passionate, those inspired students to be the next taking their step into the industry, we can't deliver on what destinations are promoting themselves as.
Yeah, I think, and I have close friends that are working like hotel chains and work in the industry of service industry here in Los Angeles. And when they tell me like it's been brutal just because they're short staffed, there's a lot of turnover. It's just like the ones that are dedicated and are staying are overworked. So it's like, I think what your message is like getting the next generation of employees prepared and ready to go in the industry. I feel like it's about to boom, which is like giving the presentations I've seen.
Oh, it definitely is. And what employers are starting to do is they're realizing they can't go back to pre-COVID ways of treating staff in the service sector, that they're now changing to becoming living wage, to offering pension, to offering sign-up bonuses, to offering CPD. And that's because they realize the value of the knowledge that they have lost. So they want to gain that back to help. And that will change the sector now, which is so important. And that's the communication that in these projects the industry can get across to our students, that we are changing. And that goes back to what Kevin and I have spoken about before, is that investment in employees.
Yeah, well, I've already talked a lot. I want to open it up to if there's anyone else that has any comments or questions. We still have a few minutes before we need to wrap up. So the floor is yours. You can unmute yourself, or if you feel like, if you can't for some reason, you can always put your question in the chat. Feel free.
I'll pop my email in, so if people do have questions, they can always pop them down and ask anything.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
Perfect. Okay, well, no, if there's no other questions, I hope everyone has a good day, and everyone who's from the UK has a good evening. And thank you very much, everyone, and take care.
All right, thank you very much.